All right, everybody, we are back talking about more Scarlet and Violet overused Pokemon movesets, competitive analysis, you know what it is. So, yesterday, in the last video, we went through the top threats, and I just wanted to say thank you for the amazing reception on the video. Definitely the most watched vid on my entire channel. So, we got to keep that momentum going, right? And I know you guys want some more information on the rest of the Pokemon in OU. So, we talked about these 12 guys, well, 13, I guess, including Cyclozar, who is probably on the chopping block. Not sure if they're actually going to go through with banning him. But if you want info on any of these guys, make sure you go ahead and check that last video out. I'll post a link in the description, but it probably will come up in your related tab anyway. Either way, we're going to be talking about the next bunch of Pokemon here. And there's a lot. It took an hour to get through these 12. So I'm just going to go off on all these Pokemon right here. And then if we have time at the end of the video, we'll get to the pretty good tier as well. But being that some of these Pokemon are not as developed as these top guys here, it's going to be probably shorter analysis on each of them. So keep in mind that I don't have experience using all these Pokemon. There's simply too many Pokemon here for one man to have gotten hands-on experience with all of them in the past 9 days, right? The game has not been out very long. A lot of this is forecasting, just my predictions for who's going to be really good, mixed with who's really good right now. Some of these are going to be some hot takes. You might not agree with every single one of them, and that's fine. I would love to hear from you guys in the comments. Make sure you leave your thoughts as well. I'm interested in hearing back from you guys. And we're definitely going to be making more follow-up videos just to kind of track the development of the metagame here. So, without further ado, let's kick it off. There are a lot more familiar faces this time around, and we'll start with Corviknight. So, Corviknight, he's still doing his thing. You know what I'm saying? He's still kind of the same guy he's always been throughout Sword and Shield OU. He hasn't really changed too much. I mean, his moveset, I would say, is basically just exactly what you would see in Sword and Shield OU. You could run Body Press over one of these two. I personally like U-Turn, though. So, let me talk about why I didn't have Corviknight at the very, very top last time. Corviknight's normal role is to just come in, eat up hits, defog the hazards away, and either heal or U-turn, get you that nice slow pivot, and sometimes just chunk something with Brave Bird, right? Come in on one of their setup guys and just do a lot of damage. So Corviknight is still very much the same, except he now has a new number one op, and that is the Golden guy. Goldengo is really, really annoying for this guy because he blocks defog, and he's immune to Body Press, and he resists Brave Bird, and he resists U-turn, right? So he can't really do much back to you, and I think the best case is that, he special defense drops you with Shadow Ball and then keeps going. I like Mirror Armor for that exact reason, just kind of an answer to Goldengo, but Pressure is also really good on this guy. You could just PP stall out their wall if you're doing enough damage to it, like, say, a Clodsire using Recover over and over again. But yeah, again, you can change the moves a little bit. I think Roost and Defog are really the absolute mandatory ones, and then you could choose any two of Brave Bird, Body Press, and U-Turn. Again, I personally like U-Turn. If you read that they're going to put their Goldengo in, you just pop that U-Turn, get out of there, get some momentum, and go to your guy that counters him, right? A faster attacker or somebody that can one-shot him, something like that. But that said, this is probably the best four. EVs, this is very open to interpretation. I went very heavy Spadef on this one, although you can definitely go a little bit more balanced. You can go full Fizdef with Rocky Helmet. You can do a lot of different stuff. For the Terra type on this, I really was not sure. I feel like you'll never want to Terrasilize your Corv. I like going to Mono Flying just because, one, it makes your Brave Bird super strong. Not that it really matters all that much. Two, you maintain your invulnerability to ground. Very, very important to just have this guy switch in on EQs. Like, if you look at this, there's not too many ground immunities. Like, every team used to have something that's immune to Earthquake just because Landorus is everywhere. So many other good attackers use ground coverage. But that's not as common anymore. Like, you'll sometimes see an entire team of 6 with no flying type, no levitator, no air balloon, none of that. You can sometimes just Terrasilize your guy to flying to be immune to ground. But yeah, I think Corviknight staying flying type is very important, but it doesn't have to be like that. You can go Steel, get rid of your weakness to Electric. You can go something like Fairy or Water and just have very good, resistances slash not a lot of weaknesses. I think there's a lot of stuff you could do with Corviknight for the Terra type. But again, he's not one of your primary targets to Terastallize. You want to save that for somebody who's probably going to do something better with it. But yeah, that's Corviknight. I mean, again, he has not changed much. Alternatively, you could run like an Iron Defense, Body Press, or Bulk Up Power Trip set. There's a couple ways you could get creative with that. I'm personally not so hot on those sets. I think having him as your defensive pivot is probably always his best role. Defog, also, I mean, we were talking about Corviknight not being the top threat that he used to be. Defog being blocked by Gholdengo, obviously pretty huge. But also, it gets rid of your own hazards too, right? I think Rapid Spin is a lot more useful in this meta just because everybody wants to get their hazards up, including you, right? So you don't want to take your own away, but there can be times in the match where like your hazards have done their job. You don't mind defogging them away, especially if you only have like one layer or something. But yeah, I think Rapid Spin is kind of like the preferred option, but obviously that loses to Gholdengo as well. So moving on, we got a new guy on the block, really annoying new guy. Oh, and let me go ahead and set those EVs. I forgot to do that actually before. So special defense Garganacl. This thing is a menace, man. Especially if you get sand up, literally nothing is killing this ever. You go to over 450 SpDef. But for those of you guys that don't know what this dude does, he has a new ability called Purifying Salt. He can't be statused. That means something different from Gholdengo's ability, Good as Gold, which blocks all status moves, right? So anything that's not an attacking move targeting Gholdengo doesn't work on him. But for Garganacl, he can't be statused. So Leech Seed can still work on him, but even Mortal Spin will never poison him. And even like Discharge or something can never paralyze him, right? Obviously, he'll block Spore as well, unless you're fighting Toadscruel, who we might talk about later in this video, or in the sequel to the sequel, because he's pretty far down the list, but that Pokemon is actually starting to pop up a little bit. Either way, Garganacl, his main role is to come in. He can either apply Salt Cure and whittle down their chunky guys. By the way, this isn't a regular trapping move, so you can switch out, and the Salt Cure will still be on them. But obviously, if they switch out, it cures it. It cures them of being cured. Then you got Iron Defense Body Press just to become unkillable and do a ton of damage back at them. And then you got Recover to Heal. So I like leftovers on this. You can maybe run some different stuff. You can maybe run Boots if you're worried about hazards. You could run Rocky Helmet if you want to chip them back, but I don't think you really need to do all that. But this Mon, I haven't gotten to actually play any games with him yet, but he is demonic, man. It's very, very hard to kill him. Even harder when you Terra him to Fairy. You could also go Water. You could also go Poison. You could go Flying. You got a lot of options for this guy's Terra type. And he is a defensive Mon that I think is worth terastallizing with, just because he can never, ever die in certain situations. Like Corviknight, I mean, he's still very hard to kill as well, but he's not like boosting his defenses or anything like that and getting huge on you. So, yeah, I really like Garganacl. He is kind of cheesy. I will say that. It can be very, very difficult to take this guy down. And again, especially in sand, when you skyrocket your special defense. But you don't even need to play him on sand. Don't get that impression at all, you know, that it's the only way to play this guy. No, he is very good on any team. And I think he's a really good counter to other defensive Pokemon. Like, this just destroys Dondozo. You know what I'm saying? He dies in 4 turns and has to rest a whole bunch, right? So you can figure some way out to run him out of PP. You can body press so his boosted liquidations don't hurt you that much. Unaware or no unaware, it's very tough for him to win against you. But in like a straight up PP war, I could see this thing losing to Dondozo. But it definitely scares them out, right? Like they take that 1/4 chip every turn. They're like, you know, maybe I should save my bulky guy for later, right? Salt Cure, also good amount of PP on this. 24. Like, you won't get stalled out running this guy. All right, next up, let's talk about Iron Treads. So this thing is definitely inferior to its cousin, Big Tusk, big fan. Of course, ground and fighting, kind of hard to beat, but he does have some advantages over the other guy. So you got a lot more speed. Great Tusk is, I think, like 87 speed or something like that. This is much higher. 106, that's a lot to work with, right? And you still have pretty good attack. You have pretty good defense. You have more special defense than Great Tusk. This is like the bulkier, more utility-oriented one. And the moves you'd run are very similar. You got Earthquake knockoffs, Rapid Spin, and Stealth Rock. So this guy's great hazard control. You can get him down for your opponent, get him back up for you. He's also, fast enough to deal with Goldengo. You just pop that knockoff on the switch if you think they're either Balloon or Scarf and they're coming in. It makes them slower than you. Does a fat amount of damage too. And then you finish him off with EQ, or you could just knock again if you think they're going to switch and he's in range to die, which I believe he will be. So we have Terra type as Dragon for this. I stole this from the former ranked #1 player. His name is Pokemon is Fun. He's got a weird stall team that has Iron Treads on it and some other kind of strange mons. And I like the Dragon Terra here. It makes you resist fire, water, really, those are the big ones, right? Like, you're weak to those as a ground and steel type, but then you switch to dragon, and suddenly they're just bouncing off. Makes you neutral to ground as well, neutral to fighting. So a lot of his weaknesses get mitigated by that, and either turn into resistances or just neutral hits. So I really like this guy. The set that Pokemon is Fun had was a little more balanced. I believe he invested slightly into Spadef and HP. But I like going the full aggressive set just because you want to be fast in this meta. Again, even on a utility mon, fast knockoff, a fast rapid spin, fast rocks, they're all really good. But again, it's a lot more nebulous. This is not a mon I've played with, so I would definitely take any EV spreads you see in this video with a grain of salt, and feel free to get creative. Again, the game is so undefined. It's only been out for a week and change, so please don't take anything I'm saying here as gospel. But this mon definitely does have a niche in the meta. He's not as good as Great Tusk, but he's still pretty damn good. He's also immune to T-Spikes. He quad resists Stealth Rock. So does Great Tusk, though. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff going for this mon. So I would say give him a shot. Young Elon Tusk, you know what I'm saying? The futuristic one. Though Great Tusk is actually, if you look at Pikalytics, he is the #1 used Pokemon in OU right now. It's a great glue mon. So I personally don't see why you would run him over Great Tusk, but he does have some niches. All right, let's talk about Ting-Lu. Big Ting, baby. Keep that motherfucking Ting on me. This thing is so good, bro. And I think now that Iron Bundle and Palafin are banned, we're going to see this thing go way, way up in usage. Simply put, this guy does not die. He is very hard to kill. I got a nice little mixed defensive spread. You can go full Spadef if you want. You could maybe even go full Fizdef if you want, just because his ability naturally makes you take special hits better. But I think going for more of a balanced spread like this is really good. 155 base HP, you're just never dying in general. But then when you have the 125 defense and the 80 Spadef with Vessel of Ruin to cut their special attack by 25% just by existing, it's so hard to take this guy down. And I think one of the real reasons that this guy is also going to go up crazy high in usage is that Chi-Yu, the little goldfish guy that we talked about in the last video, he's going way up in usage. Again, Iron Bundle has been banned, so there's kind of an opening for that new special wall breaker role. And Chi-Yu is great with Scarf, he's great with Specs. I'm starting to really favor the Specs set recently. And this kind of doesn't avoid dying to that, unfortunately. Terra Blast, Specs with Grass type. Gets real rough for this guy. But you resist Dark Pulse, which is very hard to switch into from Chi-Yu. You also kind of wall Goldengo if they're choice Scarf and they click Shadow Ball, or even Make It Rain. You kind of just shrug that off. If they click Focus Blast, you might be in some trouble. But he does really well against that guy too. He's really, really good as an anti-meta tool. Like, if you just look at this, like Dragonite, you could Whirlwind him out. Goldengo, you can resist and kill him with Quake. Annihilate, you can Whirlwind him out without having to touch him, but he can Drain Punch you for a lot of damage. Chi-Yu, you can wall unless they're Terra Grass. Great Tusk kind of beats you. Dondozo, you can Earthquake out. I'm sorry, Whirlwind out, but you might get cooked by a boosted one with Curse. This kind of cooks you. This, you take surprisingly well. You take a Moonblast surprisingly well. You could also Terra Steel to resist Fairy. Dragapult probably ain't touching him. Garchomp, you guys, I guess, trade hazards. But point being that Ting-Lu is really, really good against a lot of threats. And something I want to talk about is how roll compression is super important in this meta, right? So what I mean by roll compression is, like, having one Pokemon or the fewest amount of Pokemon accomplish the highest amount of stuff. So I've actually got a team that I want to show you guys that I've been having a lot of success with. It's Dondozo and Ting-Lu together. Like, between the two of these guys, almost nothing can crack through this, right? You have Dondozo to take on all the physical setup mons, and you have Ting-Lu to beat Chi-Yu, to beat Goldengo. You know, a lot of these Pokemon that just, like, are very hard to counter. You absorb all their hits with these two together, and then Whirlwind is great just to get something out, especially if you stack the hazards up. The spread I have on this one is a little bit more balanced. I went heavier into defense, less HP, and less Spidef on this one. You could use a spread like this as well for Ting-Lu. I think just in general, any kind of mixed defensive set is really good, but you can favor one or the other. Again, nothing is set in stone. These are not calced, right? Like, I didn't do any calcs to determine, oh, this is the optimal spread here. Like, you want exactly these EVs. No, like, kind of tweak it based on what your team is good at or bad at. And then for his moveset, EQ, just for the strong stab, even coming off of only 256 attack, this thing does a lot of damage. You got Ruination, it's the new Nature's Madness. Chip something down. Also pops Balloon on Goldengo if they're running that set. And then you could run Spikes or Stealth Rock in this third spot. I personally favor Spikes if your team already has a Stealth Rocker, because this guy, he takes so many turns to get down that he's really good at getting all the layers up. So if you have another Stealth Rocker, I like him as the Spiker, but on the team I showed you, that was the only Stealth Rocker on the team, so I had Stealth Rock, right? He can really do either one. He could even do both if you want to forego Whirlwind, but I think Whirlwind is also just like uniquely really good on him, because again, he'll take that hit from almost anything. Even if it's boosted, he can kind of just shrug off the hit and phase them out. And also, this makes it really tough to switch around this mon. You know, they try to put in a counter, and you read the switch, and you Whirlwind, and suddenly there's something else getting poked by Stealth Rocks or Spikes or whatever, taking that hazard damage, and also probably not being able to finish off Ting-Lu. So, yeah, just shuffling their team around with Whirlwind is super dirty. And, oh, whoops, I have the wrong Terra type. Steel is definitely ideal on this guy. You can go with Poison as well, but basically you have great defensive typing in terms of how many resists you have. You can't be toxic, and sometimes, like, it's Ting-Lu versus Clodsire, for example, and they want to just toxic and they'll take the Earthquake and deal with the consequences later. No, you just Terra Steel or Terra Poison. Terra Poison also allows you to absorb toxic spikes, which I really like. You'll see a good amount of my sets have Terra Poison on mons that are defensive, like Dondozo, for example. And it's that toxic immunity and that toxic spikes absorption if they do manage to get them up. I think Lamora is starting to fade a little bit in usage, so toxic spikes aren't quite everywhere as they were at the very beginning of the meta, but it's still something good to keep in mind. And toxic and big fat mons that learn toxic are becoming a little bit more popular as well. So yeah, Ting-Lu, he's amazing. Again, that roll compression, this guy kind of walls everything all at once and only has a few things that are able to crack through. So you want to keep as many team spots open as possible to have your offensive core go crazy, to, you know, capitalize on that super, super strong meta that we have right now. But yeah. All right, on to the next one. A Pokemon that kind of does the same thing as Ting-Lu, except way more geared into being a special wall. So, Clodsire, he has two of the best abilities in the game. He's got Water Absorb, so he can just soak up what would be a weakness for him, turn that into health, and completely wall water attackers. Or he can go unaware and wall your Setup Sweeper. I think these are probably the four best moves on him. Earthquake, Toxic, Stealth Rock, Recover. This is just for the solid hit. You can maybe go with something like Sludge Bomb or Gunk Shot, but his attack is a lot better than his special attack. So I think Earthquake is really solid, and it gives you something to deal with steals that absorb your Toxic, right? And Poison types as well. So Toxic, again, it's kind of rare in this meta. It is not distributed as well as it used to be in previous gens. Gen 8 kind of was the beginning of that trend where a lot of the new mons couldn't learn Toxic. Like, imagine Corviknight with Toxic. Jesus Christ. But they scaled it back even further in Scarlet and Violet in terms of which Pokemon have access to it. Clodsire is one of the few that remain. You could use Stealth Rock, but he also learns Spikes and Toxic Spikes. Like, this guy could set up as many hazards as you want. You could even forego Toxic for Toxic Spikes or regular Spikes, or just switch Stealth Rock to whichever one your team needs the most. But like I was talking about with Ting-Lu, he's really good at just taking multiple hits and getting multiple layers of spikes up. Clodsire, you can one-shot him on the physical side. So I personally just like Stealth Rock, so you only use the one turn to get him in and do your thing. And then you have Recover to heal. Black Sludge is the item. You could maybe go Boots on like a stall team just to avoid getting chipped out by their hazards. And I think that's really the only two options, would be Leftovers or Boots. But yeah, again, don't take these EV spreads and movesets as gospel, right? Like, I have max special defense and max HP. I think that's probably his most useful way to be played. Just completely unstoppable on the special side, and don't worry about the physical hits. Like, you run another guy like Dondozo or something like that to serve as your physical wall. And yeah, so, you know, while Ting-Lu has the access to Whirlwind and like the really good chip with Ruination, and he's kind of more of a mixed defender that is so hard to bring down on either side, Clodsire is a little bit more specialized. So, and also he has Toxic, right? So just kind of more of a traditional sponge wall guy. The roll compression, I think, is a little bit stronger in Ting-Lu's favor, which is why I like him better. But Clodsire can still do his thing. It's still very good at it, and you just have to have, you know, something to compensate for on your team. For the Terra type, I put Flying just because Earthquake obliterates this mon off his super low defense. You can get an extra turn to either set up or poison something if you become immune to that. But if you do go Terra Flying and you plan to actually Terrasilize this mon every once in a while, you could always run Leftovers instead of Black Sludge. So the reason that I like Black Sludge is because if you get tricked by Goldengo, for example, it'll hurt him. But it also hurts you if you Terrasilize. So choose wisely. I would say, again, you're probably not looking to Terrasilize this, and therefore it's better to run the Black Sludge. I think you'll run into more situations where you get tricked by a Goldengo or some other guy than situations in which you'd actually click Terrasilize on this. So just my personal preference, but again, do beware. Like, these are incompatible, the Terra type Flying and the Black Sludge. Just got to be sure that you don't, you know, accidentally screw yourself over with that. All right, Amoonguss. This thing is still here, and he's still a demon. So, Terra type, you go with Mono Poison to retain your invincibility to Toxic, but you could also go Water just for the very solid overall typing. You become resistant to Fire, which is huge. But I don't know. Again, ultimately comes down to your preference. I don't think you'll ever Terrasilize this mon either, right? Same with Clodsire. Ting-Lu, on the other hand, I don't know, man. Sometimes you really just become unkillable by becoming Steel, and there's a little bit more incentive to do it with him. But these guys, you probably never. And again, Black Sludge, same deal. If you don't go Terra Poison, just put Leftovers instead. You could also run Boots. You could run Rocky Helmet. You could run a lot of different stuff on this mon. This is just to get more health back because you're not running a recovery move. You just rely on Regenerator and Giga Drain and Black Sludge. But these are probably the 4 best moves for this guy. You get Giga Drain for the heal. Also, it's nice to hit with grass damage. It's just kind of a rare attacking type, and people don't really account for that in their team building, right? They're not building around grass just because a lot of things naturally do resist it. But it's definitely got its use, right? Stuff like Dondozo. Just random ground and water types that are out here. It's really nice to just pop this Giga Drain, get a good amount of health back off of it. Clear Smog to shut down setup sweepers. Foul Play to punish setup sweepers who are already set up. And then Spore. Really just like the core reason to use this mon is Spore. It's so good. 100 accuracy sleep move. This thing is almost never dying. You soak up a hit, you put something to sleep, and then you either get out of there or you chip away at it. Yeah, Amoonguss is a monster. Again, these EV spreads, very open to interpretation. I personally like going a little bit more on the FizzDev side with this guy, but you can go more special as well. Again, it comes down to what your team needs more and the style of player that you are. So, before we go to the next set of 6, I'm just going to pull up this list again so you guys can take a look. So, we got through these 6. And these are not necessarily ordered within the tier. At the top, it's a lot easier to account for like who the top half are. I was saying like this is kind of the cutoff for the super top half of the top, and the other guys were just a little bit behind, but still, you know, clearly like a tier gap above these guys. From here on down, it is not the case. It's just kind of a hodgepodge in whatever order I felt like throwing them in. But we'll see. Either way, Blissey is next. So Blissey, just like Corviknight, kind of doing the same thing it's always been doing, except because of all the ghosts in the tier, you probably will run Shadow Ball over Seismic Toss. You could also run Seismic Toss over Thunder Wave. You could run Seismic Toss over Stealth Rock if you already have a Rocker on your team. But again, roll compression is the important thing here, right? Like, Blissey's a Pokemon that's very, very specialized. Like Clodsire, like, its role is always kind of just get out there, soak up your special hit, scare out their special sweeper, and then react from there, right? So I think with the rise of Pokemon like Chi-Yu, like Iron Valiant, these crazy strong special attackers, Blissey still retains a really good niche in the meta. Even Goldengo, right? So being immune to ghost moves with normal is super important in this gen. Again, Goldengo just kind of running rampant everywhere. But yeah, you just soak up every special hit with this thing. Now, I like Shadow Ball because it gives you a direct answer to Goldengo. If it wants to try to read you with a Focus Blast and maybe go for another one to chip, you could just swing back on it. Or you could read him and swing back on him. Not having Seismic Toss obviously hurts your damage output a lot. But it's just kind of a judgment call you got to make. Again, based on what your team needs more. What is your team weak to? So I like the roll compression that Stealth Rock gives you, right? You get to be a very strong special wall and also get your hazards up. But if you have another Pokemon with Stealth Rock on your team, switch this out for Seismic Toss. Switch Thunder Wave out for Seismic Toss if you don't really need Para support. I like Ghost as the Terra type just because people will try to come in with like a big close combat or something and finish you off. That gives you that one extra turn that maybe you need to paralyze them or something, but not really the Pokemon you're itching to terastallize. I have Boots on this just because hazards are so popular right now. You can also run Leftovers if you have great hazard control on your team, but I think Boots is probably the real optimal option here. By the way, this can be Chansey as well with Eviolite, right? They're pretty much identical in how they function, except Blissey has access to Boots, and Chansey is bulkier because of Eviolite. Yeah, really just pick whichever one you like more or need more again. But Blissey is still doing the same thing she's always been doing. Then we got Big Bax, baby. Baxcalibur. This is a really dangerous setup sweeper. We've already seen Dragonite and Dragapult as setup sweeping dragons. Garchomp, he plays a bit more of a defensive role in this meta, I'd say, but he could still do some mean shit to you with a Sword Stance set. Either way, I like Bax. He's good with Boots, obviously, because you're Ice type, but you could run Leftovers. You're a sub-DD set. Getting that health back is really nice, but also bringing him in for free is really nice. And now the moves, there's a lot of variance that you can do with this. You could go Choice Band for attacks, add like Ice Shard and Earthquake. You have insane coverage with that. You could drop sub entirely for Earthquake, I would say, but maybe Ice Shard. You could drop Icicle Crash for Ice Shard and then put Earthquake over this. But his signature move, Glaive Rush, it's very strong. As long as you're set up and you're faster than them, you don't care about the drawback here. Like, you never dodge and you take double damage. You could either switch or just be so boosted that you don't have to deal with this. I personally like Terra Dragon, just in theory, but I haven't really played with this Mon. You could go Ice, you could go, I don't know, Ground, maybe, just to get a really solid defensive typing, boost your Earthquakes. Terra types are so up in the air, and I've said it a million times. I don't want to repeat myself every time we talk about a Mon, but all this stuff is not set in stone. You could go for more of a bulky-oriented set, like 115, 92, 86. This is a lot of bulk on this Mon, man. He will often get one, if not two, Dragon Dances off, and especially with the help of a sub, you just come in, you scare something out, you set up. Late game, this thing is a monster. I would say you want to do everything you can to save this for the end of the game, and then just finish them off. He... I don't believe dies to +1 anything from Dragonite, unless they're running like, I don't even know what they can run to kill this in one hit. Dragon Claw, I guess, at +1 could do some work, but yeah, like, you get to just boost up and then hit him really hard. But I'm not saying he's a Dragonite counter by any means, just kind of like speaking about his bulk. And yeah, I don't know, this thing is a menace. I think maybe even +1 Glaive Rush will kill Dragonite from full, like with multi-scale. I'm too lazy to calc that right now. This video is already going to be long enough. But yeah, Bax, he's your standard Dragon Dancer. Basically, this is like a Gen 8 Kyurem with the Dragon Dance set, except actually has a crazy high attack stat and doesn't feel like, you know, you're doing some weird off-meta thing. Like, this guy is built to do this. You could go Adamant if you want extra power, especially if you're on Ice Shard. I could see Adamant being very good, but right now you want to take advantage of the fact that he's slightly faster than guys like Dragonite. 300, kind of an awkward speed tier, but far from a bad one as well. It's tied with Great Tusk. Yeah, really, really, really good mon, but requires some setup. He's really good also with like Shed Tail and Screen support. You probably don't need sub if you're on a Shed Tail team, or even with screens. But yeah, this guy is out here doing his thing. Then we got Big Volcarona, bro. Oh my god. This thing, he didn't go anywhere. He's a little bit worse off. I think, you know, all setup sweepers suffer a little bit because Unaware Dondozo is such a crazy Pokemon to deal with. And, like, all the setup guys are kind of on notice from him. This thing, you know, you have some answers. You could Giga Drain to hit him for super effective damage, but Dondozo with Terra Poison or Terra Steel, he ain't fearing that so much. Either way, everything else in the tier gets absolutely cooked by this guy. I have the defensive spread that became popular at the end of Gen 8, but you could go max speed and either max HP or max special attack. I like this just because it helps guarantee you time to set up. Quiver Dance twice, and you delete everything if their Unaware guy is dead. Bug Buzz hits through subs, but you could run Psychic over this too. Giga Drain, I think, is really good for the coverage, and also you Terra Grass. I think that's what kept Volcarona in the meta, is being able to Terrasilize to a grass type. You get Stab on your Giga Drain. You also get rid of so many of your weaknesses, like Rock, nope, get that out of here. Water, nope, we resist that now. It just makes them a lot harder to take down. But keep in mind, Grass does have a ton of weaknesses. So if they're able to hit something on this, you might be in some trouble. Far from a flawless mon, it's not quite the demon that it used to be. Again, because Unaware is so popular too. But also just like Dragonite walls this, cooks this up for free. Dragon dances on it, and then extreme speeds, goodbye. I don't know. I could see like if your Great Tusk lives a Giga Drain, but it probably won't at +1. I don't know. I mean, he's still insane, basically. Just a little bit more setup reliant now. And I think Fiery Dance over Flamethrower is kind of the play, but you could go with Flamethrower if you just want the raw power and you're confident you'll get your QDs up. Rotom-Wash, another classic, man. So this tier, you know, it's kind of a mix of like new guys and throwbacks, but I really like Rotom-Wash right now just because the things he does are rare, right? First of all, he's a little bit faster than Goldango, which is nice. You're 5 points faster than him, which is jokes. And then you have just your standard Volt Switch pivot. I think this is probably the best set right now, just again, because everything is so fast in this meta. Having a Choice Scarfer is good. You have Trick to disable bulky guys. You have Volt Switch just to get around and be annoying. Hydro Pump for coverage. Love slamming like a Great Tusk with this. And Will-O-Wisp to burn. I feel like statusing, again, is not too popular right now, especially burn, right? But with the amount of good physical setup sweepers in the tier, you can't go wrong with this. I like Terra Electric just because with Levitate, you have no weaknesses. And he has like okay natural bulk. I mean, the 50 HP is garbage, but 107 in both defenses. Like, if you're not hitting this guy super effectively, which is tough anyway, he's only weak to grass. Yeah, you might not kill him in time. So, Rotom, I would keep an eye on him. This is one of those maybe more hot take call outs right here that this thing is going to be really good. But I do think he's still got a huge place in the meta. So look out for Rotom-Wash. In terms of moves, you could run some other stuff like Pain Split. If you do like a Leftovers or Boots set, probably Leftovers. You could run Thunder Wave instead of Will-O-Wisp, depending on what your team needs more. You could run a Nasty Plot 3 attack set. Although I personally am not too crazy about it. You can run Discharge over Volt Switch if you want to fish for paras. But again, I think Volt Switch is really good to keep the momentum up and just plays to his strengths a little bit more. So, yeah, we'll move on. And I especially don't want to spend too much time talking about older mons. And the last two in this section are older mons. So we got Azumarill. I think the classic Belly Drum set with Citrus Berry is just amazing here. You could ditch Superpower for Waterfall or Liquidation. depending on what you want more, coverage or another strong stab. Aqua Jet, just for the priority, obviously so good. And then Play Rough, great stab. Hits neutral on a lot of things. But yeah, Belly Drum just sends this thing into overdrive. And Azumarill, man, he's just good and bulky. When Palafin was still in the meta, I was really high on him. That's how he got placed up here to begin with. But you're pretty good against Dragonite. You could live hits from a bunch of the guys up here. If Chi-Yu is locked into Dark Pulse, I mean, you still kind of get cooked, but at least you have, like, a resist, I guess. A resist to both of his stabs. You could go maybe with the bulkier set if you're worried about Chi-Yu, but you have Aqua Jet to come in and pick him off. Yeah, Azumarill just matches up well with a lot of these guys. Chen-Pao, you totally wall. Iron Valiant can't do much to you. Dragapult maybe can do a lot to you if it's like Terra Blast, Ghost, Dragon Dance. But yeah, I think Azumarill fares well against a lot of the top guys in the meta right now. So look out for him. Again, new toy syndrome, probably holding this thing's usage back a bit. And same could be said for Umbreon, who I actually think is disgusting right now. Oh, and by the way, I prefer Water Terra on this just to make your Aqua Jets hit really hard. But you can go Fairy, you can go Fighting, maybe, I don't know. But probably Water is the best. So for Umbreon, very similar to what you would run in Gen 8. Also, big shout-outs to the homie Envy, who has probably put most people out there using Umbreon onto the fact that this thing is good. He gives me, like, Ting-Lu vibes, where he just doesn't die to anything, right? Like, it's very hard to take this thing down in a single hit. You have Foul Play to check their strong guys. You have Synchronize to make them regret statusing you. And then Wish Protect. These moves still have 16 PP each, right? So while Slack Off and Recover and Roost and all them got a heavy nerf to their PP count, Wish and Protect did not. That also means you can Wish Pass to other Mons. I think that's such a good role for this thing to play. I mean, coming off of the insane amount of HP it has, almost 400 HP, the reliability it has in taking hits, I really like Umbreon. I went with another balanced defensive spread, but looking at it, maybe you'd want to go a little bit more on the FizzDef side and a little bit less on the SpDef side. Ultimately, it comes down to what your team needs. I probably will say that 100 million times in this video, and it's always true. Like, no one EV spread or moveset is always the end-all be-all. But Thunderwave, this is a new toy for an old Mon. Who said you can't teach an old dog new tricks? You know what I'm saying? He previously did not have access to this move. I think it's really good. But, yeah. I was going to say that you could use Heal Bell, but it looks like he doesn't even learn it anymore. Wow, that's crazy. Wow. All right, yeah, well, Heal Bell is really rare now anyway. Does Blissey even learn it? Okay, Blissey does learn it. So, if you want a Cleric, you got to look in this direction. But for Umbreon, I guess, yeah, Thunderwave is probably the best call. You can do... maybe Taunt, maybe Yawn. Okay, yeah, Thunderwave or Yawn, I would say, is probably the last move here. Yawn is great for forcing him to switch out. And that can also get you, like, a guaranteed wish, depending on when you set it up. Or, no, never mind, it can't get you a guaranteed wish. But it can help you wish pass and help get threats out and, you know, just allow Umbreon to play his role a little better. You can go raw Moonlight over Wish if you don't need to heal the rest of your team, but again, the PP and the flexibility of being able to heal anybody in your team and not just Umbreon, I really like Wish and Protect on this. So, on to the next. And here we'll just periodically keep pulling this up so you guys can take a look. Don't want to just show it only at the beginning and then never again. But here we go. Quagsire, still doing his thing as one of the premier unaware Mons, but he definitely pales in comparison to Dondozo. I really like that Rest Talk Curse Liquidation set on him, but for Quagsire, you go for a little bit more of a utility thing. So, Toxic and Stealth Rock, this is literally the same exact moveset as Clodsire, except your defenses are more balanced. Well, actually, not even really more balanced. You're just more offensive, worse defenses, but potentially better typing. I don't really know. I mean, Water Ground, you're only weak to Grass, right? But this guy's a lot more frail on the SpDef side. Again, moveset can change based on what you need. If you'd rather wall setting up or sorry, setup sweepers that are special. You just go with Spadef instead. But I personally like the Fizdef on this guy. You can go leftovers, you can go Rocky Helmet. Really depends what you want or need the most. But yeah, Quagsire, he's still out here and he's still doing his thing. Terra type, it's kind of hard to make a call on this. I'm personally partial to poison, unlike a lot of guys, especially the bulky waters, where if they want to toxic you, suddenly they cannot. And then also you can absorb T-Spikes, but you can go Ghost to spin block, you can go Fairy to minimize your weaknesses, even though Water and Ground has the fewest weaknesses that you could possibly have. Yeah, I don't know. Really good Mon, though, just still annoying. I was sleeping on this guy at first. I had him pretty low on my tier list, but after seeing what he could do, seeing his move pool, I mean, again, he gets Toxic Spikes and Spikes now, which is crazy. It used to just be Stealth Rock for this guy, but now he gets it all. Yeah, Quagsire's still here, and you still got to watch out for him. Pex, another Mon that's still here, and still doing a very similar thing to what it's always done. This is almost the same set that you would see in Gen 8, except with the disappearance of Scald. I think Poison Jab is pretty good, because you can just fish for that 30% chance to poison. It does still learn Toxic, by the way. You could use Toxic instead of Toxic Spikes. Really depends what your team needs more, right? It's kind of the theme of how to build movesets in general. But you can Poison Jab to get the raw poison and then set up Toxic Spikes, or you could just go for the raw Toxic, which actually I think is slightly better. Haze, shut down those setup sweepers, and then you got Recover to heal. I've seen some people use the new Scald at Home, Chilling Water on this guy. You could do that and go with more of a specially defensive moveset. You could, I don't know, maybe just use like Surf for chip or Liquidation to lower the defense. Got a lot of options here, but yeah, Poison Jab and Toxic, obviously a little bit redundant. So just kind of do what you think fits best on your entire team. Yeah, I kind of like him as a T-Spike setter. Glimmora does it a little bit better, but also you have to get hit with Glimmora, and they can play around that very well. You could Terra to Poison, just Mono Poison, so you're not weak to Electric anymore. But I kind of like him as a spin blocker. Otherwise, like, he's a little bit free to spin on. And then, of course, you want to do leftovers if you do change your type, just because Black Sludge will start hurting you. It's really like, do you fear getting tricked by somebody with Trick more than you fear the need to actually Terrasilize this guy? And again, you're probably not looking to ever do it on him. You want to save that either for an offensive Mon or for a defensive Mon that's going to accomplish more. So, Pex, I don't know, man. Pex is not what he used to be, but I still think he's good. I mean, any Regenerator Mon is really dangerous. You can also just go Rocky Helmet and full Fizz Def. I think his moveset is a lot more open to interpretation these days, though. Losing Knockoff and losing Scald really did hurt this Mon. So I'm not sure what I would actually lock in as the 4 on this guy, but this looks pretty good. And then, yeah, you could just go max Fizz Def, but you could also maybe like tone it down a little bit. Nice 420, and invest a bit into your Spadef. Really comes down to what you need on your team. But he's still doing the same kind of thing that he always has been doing, just a little bit more focused on shutting down setup. I think that's probably like his niche, because Haze is also very rare this gen. Cloyster. Oh, man. Cloyster is still a dirty-ass bitch. I still hate this Pokemon, and you're probably not going to see him all that much, but when you do, you're probably not prepared for him like you used to be. You know, you don't have like a Magnezone anymore on every team to just, or on lots of teams, just to wall him. It's so hard to wall the combination of Ice and Rock Stab. It's also very, very hard to wall Ice Stab, Rock Stab, or not Rock Stab, Icicle Spear, Rock Blast, and Hydro Pump, right? Because now you're a mixed sweeper. Shell Smash is boosting both your attack and special attack, of course. But I think this guy's a great anti-lead, right? Stuff like Glimmora. I mean, as long as you have something to soak up the million T-Spikes that are coming out after you Icicle Spear him, you can destroy Focus Sash leads, just get that one Shell Smash, live any hit, and especially if they try to set hazards up in your face instead of swinging on you and breaking your Sash, man, they could kiss their asses goodbye. This guy, yeah, I mean, he's kind of a gimmick, but he always has been a gimmick, right? I think he's just got a solid lead, or a solid role as an anti-lead. Also, by the way, why is Icicle Spear 100 accuracy and 48 PP, and Rock Blast is 90 and 16? They've been discriminating against rock types for too long, man. Game Freak, get it together, bro. Why are you hating the rocks? Give them one accurate move. And also this PP. I mean, I could maybe understand, like, this theme that rock has terrible accuracy, but bro, 16 PP for what? Like, why is this 48? I don't understand. Anyway. Yeah, Cloyster, still a hoe. I hate him. Ditto. Especially in a meta with all these setup sweepers. Ditto is great. You just come out, copy their stat boosts, now with a Choice Scarf. And you get to mop the floor with their team using their own Mon. Not much to say about Ditto. It's just like, if you see him on your opponent's team, play around him very carefully. If you have him on your team, wait for your opponent to start slipping. When they get that setup sweeper rolling, could get real ugly for them real fast. But, yeah, I don't know. I think early meta Ditto is always really good, just because, like, you know, you don't even have to think about filling one of the spots on your team. As long as you have a well-rounded team, you just use this to copy whatever their most demonic setup sweeper is. But it's also kind of useless versus stall. So the higher you get on the ladder, I think the more you'll run into stall. Something I also just want to point out as a meta trend, like, I think stall is getting bigger and better, but you don't see it until you get to the really sweaty parts of the ladder. I got to like the high 1600s yesterday. I started running into a lot more defensive teams. So just something to keep in mind. All right, Kingambit. This is the new Bisharp evolution, if you're just joining us, if you're behind the times in Scarlet and Violet. So he has his own ability, Supreme Overlord. The more of your Mons that die, the stronger he gets. This can be an amazing late game cleaner, especially because he has Sucker Punch. It's also bulky as a bitch, man. 100 HP, 120 defense, and a pretty nice 85 SpDef. I mean, this was never a especially defensive Mon at all, but like, this is pretty good just to soak up random hits. You could Terra to Dark to boost your Sucker Punches and your Cleaves. Kowtow Cleave is his new signature move. It's just like slightly stronger crunch, but it doesn't drop your defense. But also they can never dodge it, I guess. Not really an important detail in Smogon OU because evasion is banned. But yeah, this thing hits really, really hard. You basically can win the game off a Swords Dance into Sucker Punch. And if the thing that I think hurts this guy is that you can play around him very well. Rocky Helmet, unaware, not swinging into Sucker Punch, right? All these things make him kind of hard to play. You could maybe go with more speed, but honestly, even at max, he's not really outspeeding anything useful. It's like the same as Azumarill, but yeah, just like having to make that read with Sucker Punch or not can be very tough. I think he's like still naturally slower than a lot of defensive Mons too, with 0 speed investment. So maybe you like compromise his bulk a little bit, and invest into speed a bit. I personally like as much bulk as possible on this guy, just because he really does tank hits quite well. And Dark Steel, like, you have a good amount of weaknesses with this, but when you go mono Dark, that cuts it down. You don't auto lose to fighting or fire moves anymore, or ground, right? Losing those weaknesses and like the 4x on fighting can be really useful for you. So I don't know. Again, play with it based on what your team needs. You make that call. If Corviknight is going to be really annoying for you, maybe just run enough speed to creep on the Corviknights, right? Corviknight has, I think, 156 speed. Oh, 170, right? I forget. He has a weird base speed. So I don't know. Maybe you go like 174, 173 just to creep on Corviknights who throw a couple EVs in. But yeah, I don't know. Kingambit, he's honestly a little bit underwhelming, but also if you're really good, like if you make insane plays, you can win entire games with this. Whether he's the 6th Mon, the 5th Mon that you put in, or even just at any point in the game. Like, it's not like anything is really taking hits from this without Supreme Overlord boosts. You get one Swords Dance, and this thing already cuts the entire tier in half. So yeah, Kingambit, maybe stocks in him are going to go up. Maybe we'll see more people running Defiant if Intimidate and Defog and all that become more popular later. Thinking maybe like a post-Pokemon Home meta. But yeah, he's a threat for sure. You just got to play him very carefully, but the reward is massive if you do. Then we got Espathra. Oh my god. This thing, if you're not prepared for this, this can rip an entire team in half. He's got speed boost, and Calm Mind and Stored Power, right? That's a pretty crazy combination. And then you run Dazzling Gleam to hit dark types. You run Terra Fairy to resist things that would be your weaknesses normally, like Bug, like Dark. And it also boosts your Dazzling Gleam. So I like the FizzDef set with Leftovers and Roost, but you could run Sub over Roost. You could maybe run Sub over Dazzling Gleam on this set and just pray that you're able to deal with their dark types before they deal with you. But yeah, this is probably the best for. Just the recovery is really nice, and like the longer you stay alive, the more speed boosts you get, obviously, which also powers up your stored power. Not much to say about this mon other than that it's a cheese ball when you run it with screens. Shed Tail teams, screens teams can be really good with this. But yeah, this I think was kind of a dark horse Pokemon. Nobody really had their eyes on it at the beginning, but I think the more people figure out how to use it, the dirtier it's going to get. And you could do some other cool stuff. I mean, you could go like Terra Blast with Fire maybe as your coverage. I personally also like Choice Specs on this with its signature move, Lumina Crash. So if you get rid of their dark types, nothing is switching into this. You're boosting your speed every turn, lowering their SpDef. Like, nothing is taking 2 Lumina Crashes with Choice Specs from this thing. I mean, I'm sure some things are, but you get rid of their dark types, and Jesus Christ, this thing could run rampant. But as it stands, the speed boost and Calm Mind Stored Power set is on top. But do look out for Choice Specs on this. I mean, he's got very solid speed, 105 base, like, and it goes up every single turn. I don't know, man. You leave this thing alone for one turn, and it can just completely destroy you. But Dark is very common, and so is Steel, right? Like, Resist, Immune, 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 Resist. So you got to play around it. I think Magnezone could be a really good partner, getting rid of the Steels, but like, I don't know. Magnezone doesn't fare too well against Golden Guy. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if that set ever sees the light of day. But as it stands right now, this is just like the eliminate all the counters and then cheese the shit out of them for the end of the game. All right, so that's going to do it for all the mons that I put in the very good tier. I think I'm just going to call the recording here, and I'm going to upload separately a video on all the mons here in the pretty good tier. So again, let's just take a look at this image. I'm going to just hop in immediately and record it right now, but I don't want the video to be 2 hours or something, you know what I'm saying? So just for your viewing pleasure / ease of digestion of the information, I'm going to cut this video right here. This is how many Pokemon? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And then, okay, so this is 18 Pokemon. Oh, yeah, duh, I know. It's 3 full teams worth. Math is hard. All right, guys. So we're going to cut this right here. Thank you for watching. Make sure to leave a comment with your thoughts. Let me know how your ladder journey has been going. I'm going to pull this up one more time for you to look at it. And I'll scroll down as well, because we've seen enough of the top guys. So we're going to be talking about the next 2 tiers in the next, or sorry, the next tier down in the next video. But I'm going to record it right now. We get 2 videos in one day for you guys. So I hope you enjoyed. Sub to the channel. Drop a like on the video. You know, if you found this from Twitter, make sure you retweet it. Spread the word. Thank you guys for watching. And I hope you're enjoying this meta as much as I am. Peace.